Have you ever ruined something important? Not because it was broken, but because you let the moment break you. You said things you didn't mean, walked away too early, burned a bridge just to feel powerful for 5 seconds. And afterward, you knew it wasn't worth it. But emotion had already made the decision for you. If that feels familiar, keep watching. This isn't a motivational speech. This is a reality check for every man who's ever let anger, fear, or pride make choices his future had to pay for. Because in life, you don't lose when things go wrong. You lose when your emotions become stronger than your mind. And the truth is, most people never taught us how to stop that from happening. That's what this video is for. In the next few minutes, you'll see what it looks like to flip the switch, to stop reacting, and start responding, to build control from the inside out. You'll hear 6 short stories, real, raw, and quiet. No lectures, no cliché, just proof that one decision, choosing the mind over the moment, can change everything. So before we begin, do one thing. If you've ever lost something to a reaction, or if you're rebuilding from what emotion destroyed, hit like and subscribe. Not just for you, but so this message reaches the next man who needs it too. Because the battle isn't out there. It's inside. And you can only win when your mind is stronger than your emotions. What does it look like to choose the mind when it hurts the most? Let's begin with someone who faced that exact choice. In a parking lot, with everything to lose. The leader who let her mind take the wheel. She sat alone in the parking lot, engine off, eyes burning. The world outside kept moving. People walking, cars passing, voices echoing from the building she'd just walked out of. But inside her car, time stood still. Erica Sloan, 41, had just spent 6 years climbing the ladder at a manufacturing firm in Atlanta. She showed up early, stayed late, mentored juniors, picked up the slack. And when the company announced they were expanding the executive team, she didn't hope. She expected. Her name had earned that spot. But the list came out, and her name wasn't on it. She found out later. The VP role had been promised over drinks, months ago. Politics, not performance. No call. No explanation. Just absence. She smiled in the meeting like nothing happened. Congratulated the people who got promoted. But the moment she closed the conference room door behind her, the smile cracked. And now, here she was, gripping the steering wheel like it might keep her from falling apart. She wanted to quit. Right then, right there. To write the email, to walk away, to burn the bridge she built herself brick by brick. Because that's what emotion does when it feels betrayed. It screams, "Get out. They don't see you. They don't deserve you." Oh, but Erica did something rare. She didn't act. She cried. Yes, she honored that heartbreak. But she didn't hand the steering wheel of her life over to it. That night, instead of writing her resignation letter, she opened her laptop and started searching. Executive leadership programs, communication strategy intensives, courses in political navigation, not because she lacked value, but because she refused to let emotion write her next chapter. She chose strategy over spite, vision over validation. 6 months later, Erica led the most successful product rollout the division had seen in a decade. A year later, she was offered the VP title, same office, same people, but this time, on her terms. Not because they finally saw her, but because she made herself undeniable. What happened in that parking lot wasn't weakness. It was transformation. It was the moment she realized, your feelings might be loud, but they don't have to be in charge. Most people think strength means not crying, not flinching, not showing that it hurt. But the Stoics taught something deeper. Strength is feeling everything and still choosing wisdom. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. Erica couldn't control the politics, the decision, the silence. But she could control how she responded. And in that space, between heartbreak and action, she found her power. Because real power doesn't yell. It doesn't storm out. It doesn't demand recognition in the moment of pain. Real power stays calm, studies the terrain, and moves in silence. It doesn't rush to destroy. It builds, brick by brick, even when no one's watching, especially when no one claps. There's a moment every leader faces, when the emotion says leave, but the mission says grow. Most people obey the emotion. Erika didn't. She paused, recalibrated, and became the kind of leader who leads herself first. That's what this is really about. Not promotions, not praise, but choosing to let your mind lead when your heart is hurting. Because storms pass, but who you become in the storm, that lasts. So next time you're tempted to react, to rage, to resign out of pain, don't sit in the car if you need to. Let the tears fall, but don't hand over the wheel. Let your mind lead, and your life will follow. Devon Price, the star who let one emotion cost everything. It happened fast. Too fast for anyone to stop it. One argument, one burst of anger, one slammed locker door. And just like that, Devon Price lost everything he'd worked for. He was 18, a senior, a natural-born point guard from Fort Worth with instincts coaches couldn't teach. Full-ride scholarship to Duke. Locked in. Scouts from the NBA G League were already whispering. But on a cold Thursday in February, 5 minutes before practice, he let one moment define his legacy. Coach Williams called out a missed play during a team review. Nothing personal. Nothing cruel. Just blunt, like coaches do. But Devon, already exhausted, already carrying weight no one saw, snapped. Words were exchanged. Loud ones. Teammates froze. The coach stepped back. And Devon threw his practice jersey at the floor and walked out. He didn't just walk out of the gym. He walked out of his future. He used to dream of standing under bright lights, jersey crisp, his name echoing through a packed arena. Now, it was just silence. By the time he cooled down, it was too late. The athletic director suspended him. The scholarship was withdrawn. The scouts stopped calling. The door didn't close overnight. But it closed. And Devon would tell you today, it wasn't what coach said that cost him his dream. It was the fact that his pride answered before his mind could speak. That's what emotion does. It charges into battle before asking why there's a war. It swings before it sees the target. It reacts. And regrets later. Most people think destruction is loud. Doors slamming, fists flying, voices raised. But often, it's silent. One decision. One phrase. One ego flare. And what was once a future becomes a memory. The Stoics warned us about this. They knew the real war isn't out there. It's in here. In the pause between feeling and doing. In the space where reason either rises or rage takes the wheel. Epictetus wrote, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Devon wasn't mastered. He was ruled. He let the sting of embarrassment choose for him. He let the voice of pride drown out purpose. And the cost? A shot at the life he'd been training for since he was 10 years old. We all have a Devon moment in our past. A time we burned something we couldn't rebuild. Just to feel powerful for 5 seconds. But here's the truth. What feels strong in the moment often reveals weakness in hindsight. Real strength is restraint. It's knowing you could explode, but choosing not to. It's standing in the fire of your own emotion and not letting it make your next move. Devon learned that, not in a textbook, not in a lecture, but in the silence of regret, in the long nights of wondering, was it really worth it? In the quiet realization that being right means nothing if you lose everything trying to prove it. And years later, when he started mentoring young athletes, he said the same line to each one: "Your future will never ask how angry you were. It will only care how you responded, because the world doesn't care about your temper. It remembers your temperament. The courts don't replay your feelings. They replay your choices. So the next time your pride rises to fight, pause, breathe. Remember that emotion is a spark, but your mind is the architect, and no one builds legacy with fire. They build it with patience, clarity, and restraint. You don't win by reacting. You win by mastering the urge to destroy what took years to build. And that mastery, that is what separates the talented from the great. Let your pride burn for a moment. Then let your mind lead you forward. The writer who let feelings delay his life. Lance had a story inside him. One he swore would change lives. He said it with conviction, with the fire of someone who had seen too much and survived more. "I just need time," he used to say. "When the inspiration hits, when the moment feels right, then I'll write." But the inspiration never showed up, and the moment never came. What did come was another year, then another, and the story inside him, it stayed right there. Inside, Lance Rivers was 33 when he realized that dreaming about writing had become a substitute for living. He wasn't lazy. He read obsessively, scribbled in notebooks, watched documentaries on craft, followed every writer he admired. But he never sat down to do the thing that mattered. Not consistently. Not with discipline. And when asked why, the answer always circled back to the same ghost. "I don't feel it yet. I'm waiting for the spark." What Lance didn't understand, what most men don't, is that inspiration is not a lightning strike. It's a flame you build. Slowly, painfully, through friction, through resistance, through the mundane repetition of showing up whether you want to or not. The Stoics warned us about this illusion. Seneca wrote, "While we waste our time hesitating and postponing, life is slipping away." Lance wasn't idle. He was just stuck in the deadliest waiting room of all. The one that feels productive, because it's full of preparation, planning, and perfect excuses. He told himself he was being careful, that the story had to be told the right way, that he needed to feel more healed first. But deep down, he wasn't protecting the story. He was protecting himself from judgment, from failure, from finding out that maybe, just maybe, the thing he dreamed of building wasn't as good as he'd imagined. So he stayed where it was safe. In the idea, in the dream, in the waiting, and what was once a fire became a flicker. The truth is, feelings are fickle. One day they say go. The next they say wait. One morning they lift you like wind in your lungs. The next they wrap around your legs like chains. But action doesn't care how you feel. Action shows up. Action moves the story forward. Page by page, brick by brick. Lance thought writing was about inspiration. But writing, like life, is about returning to the desk, to the routine, to the fight, over and over until the flint finally sparks. The men who build legacies don't wait to feel ready. They act, especially when they don't. They don't beg for magic. They show up and make room for it. Lance eventually learned this. Not in a breakthrough. Not with fireworks, but in silence. In the lonely decision to rise at 5:30 a.m. every day, before the world could offer another excuse. In the quiet, choosing to write one sentence instead of chasing the perfect paragraph. In the mundane, beautiful discipline of letting the mind lead, even when the soul was tired. And over time, he didn't just write the story. He became it. So if you're still waiting for the sign, the mood, the perfect window, hear this. You are the spark. You are the flint. You are the one who must strike. Don't wait for the fire. Build it. Let your mind lead, and your life will follow. She trained when no one was watching. It was still dark when she stepped into the gym. The parking lot was empty. The only sound was the soft hum of the streetlight overhead and the echo of her own footsteps on the concrete. No crowd, no music, no one filming her deadlifts, just silence and steel. Maya Knox didn't train for attention. She trained for clarity. While the world was still asleep, while social media slept with its endless hunger for likes and applause, she was already 3 sets in. Not because she felt like it, but because she made a promise to herself. And Maya didn't break promises. People used to ask her where her motivation came from. She never had a flashy answer. She wasn't chasing a record or some viral fitness moment. She didn't wear branded clothes or choreograph her workouts to fit a reel. She didn't train to impress. She trained to remember who she was. Every rep was a reminder. Every bead of sweat, a vow. Every early morning, a quiet act of rebellion against comfort. That's what most people never understand. Discipline isn't loud. It's not sexy. It doesn't post updates. It doesn't ask for validation. It shows up in silence, over and over, when nobody claps, when nobody notices, when nobody even knows you're still trying. Maya had been through enough to know that applause fades fast, that admiration is fickle, that the world will cheer for you one day and forget you the next. But discipline? That stays. That's yours. It doesn't need permission. And it doesn't care who's watching. The Stoics knew this long before gyms or selfies existed. Marcus Aurelius said, "Just that you do the right thing. The rest doesn't matter." Oh, Maya lived by that. Because what mattered wasn't how strong she looked. It was how strong she became when no one was watching. She remembered the days she used to train for approval. Back in college, back when everything was performance. She remembered the burnout, the hospital visit, the moment she realized admiration wasn't worth her body falling apart. But that version of her had burned out, collapsed under the weight of other people's opinions. The Maya who walked into the gym at 5 a.m. didn't care who followed her anymore. She followed herself, and that changed everything. Because when you stop training to be seen and start training to be steady, you stop chasing strength and start becoming it. Most people think progress is dramatic. That success shows up with fireworks and fanfare. But Maya knew better. Progress is subtle. It's invisible, until one day your old excuses no longer fit. Until you look in the mirror and see a storm that doesn't flinch. Until pain no longer owns you. Until the weight feels heavy. But your will feels heavier. She didn't always want to go. There were mornings. She sat in the driver's seat and stared at the door for 5 whole minutes. There were nights when her muscles begged for rest and her mind whispered, "Skip it, just this once." But she went anyway. Not because she felt powerful, but because she knew real power was forged when you act without needing to feel it. That's the kind of strength that lasts. The kind that doesn't break when life gets messy. The kind that doesn't shatter when approval disappears. The kind that keeps building, even in silence. So if you're waiting for motivation, stop. If you think you need someone to see you, let that go. Get up early. Show up empty. Put your hands on the iron. Let your breath slow. Let your mind lead. Because the person you become when no one is watching, that's the one who wins. That's the one no one can take from you. The brilliant mind who couldn't stay in the room. He was the smartest guy in the building. That's what everyone said. Cameron Lee, 25, fresh out of Columbia with a double major, razor-sharp insight, and the kind of mind that could reverse engineer a problem before most people even noticed it existed. He was fast, precise, visionary, and still, he didn't last 6 months. Not because he lacked skill, but because he couldn't hold his seat when things got tense. It started small. A partner pushed back in a meeting. Cameron interrupted, too eager to defend himself. Then a manager questioned his analysis. He rolled his eyes and snapped. Later, when a colleague took credit for his work in front of leadership, he didn't pause. He erupted, and in every one of those moments, something in the room shifted. The brilliance dimmed, not because he was wrong, but because he wasn't in command of himself. The firm let him go quietly. No scandal, just a polite phrase. Not the right fit. And just like that, the most promising mind in the building became a lesson no one wanted to talk about out loud. Cameron had always been told intelligence was everything. That if you were smart enough, people would listen. If you were sharp enough, they'd follow. No one ever taught him the one thing that really matters in the rooms that decide things: emotional command. Because you can be the loudest thinker, but if you lose yourself in the room, you lose the room. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Oh, and Marcus Aurelius? He led an empire through war and plague with a single unbreakable code: control your inner state, or be ruled by it. Cameron had the mind, but he hadn't trained the muscle behind it. He could quote strategy books, but couldn't stay quiet in a 10-minute meeting. He could analyze volatility in the market, but not in his own voice. He could predict systemic risk, but couldn't predict when his ego would flare. He could optimize company performance, but couldn't sit in silence for 5 seconds when someone challenged his idea. So he became that guy. Brilliant, but reactive. Gifted, but exhausting. And no one trusts brilliance that burns too hot in the wrong moment. What he learned, too late, is that your value isn't just in what you know. It's in what you withhold. In what you don't say when you're angry. In what you choose not to react to when someone disrespects you in public. It's in your stillness when others try to provoke you. That's not weakness. That's mastery. Real strength is being able to stay in the room. When the tension rises, when your pride's on fire, when your idea's on trial, and not flinch, not fold, not fume, but stay composed, present, grounded. That kind of power doesn't come from books. It comes from building yourself in silence, from watching your reactions like a hawk, from rewiring the instinct to prove something into the discipline to prove nothing. Because your calm already says it all. Cameron eventually got another shot. But this time, he didn't focus on being the smartest. He focused on being unshakable. He listened more, spoke less. And when he spoke, he didn't react. And directed, because that's what real leaders do. So if you're brilliant, but your temper flares, if you're gifted, but can't hold still under pressure, hear this: your ideas won't save you if your emotions undo you. Learn to master your presence, or you will be replaced by someone who has. Let your mind lead, and your life will follow. From cell block to clarity. The Roman philosopher Seneca once said, "No man was ever wise by chance." Wisdom, in his view, was forged, tempered, cut from pain, silence, and the choice to respond with thought instead of impulse. And if that's true, then one of the wisest men I've ever known wasn't a professor. He wasn't a CEO. He was an ex-con named Jeremiah Cross. Before the arrest, he was exactly who the world expected him to be. Angry, reckless, explosive. Every insult was a war. Every disappointment, a betrayal. He moved through life like a fuse. Short, unpredictable, and eventually destructive. When the final mistake came, a confrontation that spiraled out of control, no one was shocked. Not his neighbors, not the police, not even him. The system took his body, but what he didn't realize then was that his mind had been caged long before the cell door slammed shut. The first months behind bars were what you'd expect: bitterness, silence, fights. Jeremiah didn't talk. He didn't reflect. He just carried the same storm he'd always lived with. Now surrounded by concrete and metal, instead of streets and noise. But something changed when he found a book on a library cart, one no one else seemed interested in: Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. A Roman emperor writing to himself, calmly, humbly, in the middle of war, loss, and illness. What shocked him wasn't how wise the book was. What shocked him was how much it reminded him of the chaos in his own head. One line hit him like a hammer. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Until that moment, Jeremiah had believed the opposite. That strength came from intimidation, from dominance, from reaction. But Marcus was talking about a different kind of strength. Quiet strength. The kind that absorbs insult without retaliation. That feels pain without letting it drive action. The kind that could live in a prison and still be free. So Jeremiah made a decision. He didn't plan a comeback. He didn't shout about turning over a new leaf. He just started mastering the one thing no one had ever taught him to control. His mind. He began waking before the others. He read. He sat in stillness. He paused before speaking. He wrote letters he didn't send. He listened to other inmates. Not to correct them, but to understand. He observed the storms of others and studied the ones still inside himself. Not to judge, to train. When another inmate shoved him in the food line, he didn't swing. He stepped back, breathed, and felt something strange, power. This was not redemption. This was discipline. Years passed. When he walked out of prison, he had no money, no job, and no platform. But he was free, in the only way that matters. And from that place, he built, not a resume, not an image, a foundation. Today, Jeremiah mentors young men, some from his old neighborhood, some already walking the path he barely escaped. He doesn't preach. He just shows up, calm, clear, grounded. They listen not because he demands it, but because he embodies it. Stillness, strength, self-command. This is the real transformation. Not the kind that makes headlines, but the kind that holds under pressure. The kind that doesn't need a spotlight because it's built in the dark. The lesson isn't complicated. You can't control everything life throws at you, but you can control whether you remain a prisoner of your own reactions. Let your emotions lead, and you stay caged. Let your mind lead, and you walk free, just like Jeremiah Cross did. In a culture obsessed with performance, reaction, and being seen, there's quiet power in restraint, in not replying right away, in not quitting when it stings, in not needing to be understood to keep going. Life will provoke you. Pride will want the last word. Pain will demand a reaction. But the man who leads with his mind doesn't obey those first impulses. He observes them, holds the line, and chooses with intention. That is the difference between momentary power and lasting strength. Between chaos and command. Between burning bridges and building legacy. The Stoics weren't teaching us to feel nothing. They were teaching us to not be ruled by what we feel. To turn every hit, every delay, every failure into fuel. Not drama. That kind of mindset isn't loud. It's not always admired. But it's unbreakable. And in the long run, it's what makes you dangerous in the right way. Not because you react, but because you don't have to. If you've ever paused when everything in you wanted to explode, that was strength. If you're building something quietly, without applause, that is leadership. And if you're learning to lead yourself first, you're already ahead. Leave a comment below. Let the mind lead. Not just to say it, but to live it. Your discipline starts here. And if this message spoke to you, give it a like so it can reach someone who needs it. Subscribe for more content like this, because one decision, one pause, one breath can change everything. Your emotions don't get the final say. Your mind does. Let it lead.